The next company, Acarix, is presented by Helen Ljungdahl, CEO of this fantastic company. It's a medical company marketing the CAD score system, and it's currently available in Sweden, Denmark, and Germany. The CAD score system is developed from pioneering research on phonocardiography, providing an innovative, non-invasive, and ultra-sensitive analytical diagnostic aid for immediate rule-out. So welcome Helen Ljungdahl here up with me on stage.
Thank you. Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here, and I have to say too that it's nice to be able to finally have these live events again. My name is Helen Ljungdahl, and I am the CEO of Acarix. I joined the company back in September as the president of Acarix USA, and then in January I also took over the CEO role. So the company is really ready to start a new transition phase, and I'm extremely happy to be leading this phase. The core of everything we do is related to chest pain. And I think many of you might have experienced it yourself. Maybe you have friends or family. We're talking about stable chest pain, the kind of chest pain that you might feel walking up the stairs. You might feel it having worked in the garden, sit down, it goes away. The challenge with these chest pains is that sometimes it's very difficult to determine if it's related to the heart or not. It might be surprising, but it's not always related to the heart. And we believe that women like the woman here in the picture, that she should be able to know, if not immediately, at least quickly, whether that pain is related to the heart or not. Chest pain is very common. 20 to 40% of people will experience it sometime during their lifetime. And there are estimations that as many as 1 million people seek medical attention every day for chest pain. What was really surprising to me is that, first of all, doctors don't want to turn away patients when they show up in the clinic with chest pain. So they put them through a number of diagnostic tests. But only 1 out of 10 actually ends up having what's called coronary artery disease, or in Swedish we would call it kranskärlssjukdom. So 9 out of 10 are going through all these tests for no reason at all. Our solution to this is the CAD score system. It's an innovative listening device. It's built on acoustic engineering and AI. So the device is, as you can see, placed on the chest, on top of the heart. It takes about 10 minutes to do the whole procedure, 3 active listening, and then we can tell you if you have low risk of coronary artery disease. And we do that with a high degree of certainty. The device has been studied now for more than 15 years. And we have approval in Europe with the CE marking, and we recently also received approval by the FDA as a de novo technology, which actually means that there's no other competitor or device similar to this. And the technology is backed by 45 patents. So where did it come from? It was actually, the idea was born at Aalborg University under the leadership of Samuel Schmidt, who is a professor there. And the idea was that we would listen to the blood flow in the coronary arteries, and you can see them around the heart. Now, if the heart or those arteries are healthy, the flow is very smooth. But when you start to develop coronary artery disease, you see buildup of plaque, and you probably have seen this. So what happens to the blood flow is that it's like water in a river. It starts to flow and it creates murmurs. And our microphone there is able to pick up these sounds. And it does this in a very sort of sensitive and innovative way. There's no way the human ear could ever hear this. So on top of that, then we layer an algorithm, an AI-powered algorithm. So it listens to the blood flow, it picks up these heartbeats, eliminates all the noise, and then we have identified 8 features that we pick up. And then we add some risk factors. And at the end, after those 10 minutes, you either get a score of 20 or below, which means that you have a very low risk of having coronary artery disease. If it's 20, that means that we can't rule you out at that moment, and you should probably continue with these regular diagnostics. So where do we think it's going to be used? So now I've been in the US since September. Where this in the US makes sense is at the very first point of contact. Somebody comes in over the weekend, they experience some chest pain. Physicians are suspecting that maybe this person has coronary artery disease, and they can do it right there and then in the clinic. And, as we said earlier, rule out those that have low risk. The others can then continue, but as you can see on the bottom line, if you continue through, there's a number of tests, and there's also radiation involved in some of these, and some of them are also invasive. So we can actually help select out those with low risk. And remember what I said earlier, 9 out of 10 that have gone into that bottom row actually don't have coronary artery disease. What's impressive for a company our size, we're less than 20 people, but we have a very extensive clinical program. So more than 8,000 patients. The boxes here in orange, they form the basis for our CE mark and also the FDA clearance. And then we have a large study filter, which is a randomized controlled trial that's ongoing right now. But every step of the way, our algorithm is getting improved with each and every trial. So commercially, what's happening? So at the moment, we are present in the Nordics, in the German-speaking part of Europe, and we're entering the UK, but most importantly, we're going into the US now, finally. But as you can see, in 2021, we increased the number of devices in the market. We're still a low number with 150 systems, but it's increasing. What's impressive, though, is that the patches that go on each device, that's doubling, which is indicating that every system is being used more and more, and our revenue was up 73%. The business model is quite simple. The clinic will buy the device, that's a capital investment, and then for every test they do, they will buy patches. And each patch has a code, and it's for that one patient. Now, we've estimated the lifetime value of one of these systems, and in Europe, we estimate it to be around 300,000 Swedish krona. In the US, the prices, of course, are higher. So there it could be close to 73,000, 74,000, but we will confirm that. The US market, you heard that in the previous presentation, it is the biggest market, especially when it comes to cardiology. So 10 million visits to the emergency room and to clinics every year, 18 million people have coronary artery disease. You see the number of cardiologists, emergency room, internal medicine. There's no way we can see all these doctors, but we have a database where we can pick those with the highest number of chest pain patients, and that will be our target. So I've worked in the pharmaceutical industry now for more than 25 years, biotech. I actually don't think there is a product that I've seen so far that so clearly meets a medical need, a current medical need, not one that we have to build. It is there right now. And you can see that in the US. First, we received the FDA clearance. Then we received a reimbursement code. So you need that to get paid in the US. The American Medical Association granted that to us in October. And then due to the process, we will have that available in July. But in the meantime, over the last few months, we've been working with clinics, and we can see reimbursement up to $200 for each test. So a doctor that buys our system and patches, the price in the US is $7,500 for the device, and then $75 per patch. They estimate they need to do 30 to 50 patients to break even. Interestingly, in November, also big organizations, American College of Cardiology and American Heart, issued new guidelines, new chest pain guidelines. We're not in the guidelines, but there is clearly doors open for early assessment of these patients. And then what's interesting, I think, also about the US, of course, the healthcare system is changing now. But in the US, a patient coming in to see a doctor demands an answer. And a doctor will want to give an answer. So even if these guidelines are saying you should not be doing very much with these low-risk patients, the CAD score system can give them an answer in 10 minutes, whether the patient has low risk or an elevated risk. So how have we gone about this? The US being such a big market, we had to work very systematically. So the company subsidiary was established in August. I joined in September, and I have to say, we communicate as much as we can to the market, but those first 3 months was all about setting up the subsidiary. So we have an office in New York City. We have ability to hire in December, hire a team. We can pay invoices, and we have product in the warehouse. We also in parallel worked with a commercial company to really understand, do we have the right approach? So we were in clinics, we were in big hospitals, we were in the Veterans Administration, and we know what we need to do now. In the first quarter, we hired our leadership team in the US. We have our reps starting now, the first 2, and then it keeps going. It's a very strong team, and we've had our first sale. And we've had repeat purchase of patches. And we've had billings. So the things are now in place to really start growing. So a few words about our goals. 2022, the board decided, new CEO, expand the team, go for the US and secure funding. And now we've articulated at the end of last year that we're going to go from 150 systems up to 3,000 systems by end of 2024, with a revenue of 20 million Swedish krona, and then of course very profitable. So how are we going to do that? The US is a big part of this growth, but we will also continue to grow in Europe. And then reimbursement. We currently don't have reimbursement in Germany and the UK, but the GBA just came out a couple of weeks ago and said, you know, the study we were discussing that you needed to do in Germany to get reimbursement, you don't need to do it. You have the filter study, we will wait for those results and the decision will be made on that. And then we have to recognize that we have a platform that we can build from. We can listen to many organs in the body, but heart failure is an obvious next one, hjärtsvikt. And so we're already in the dialogue with the FDA on how we're going to go about that. And then our team, of course. So we now have a strong, tight global management team. I'm delighted that Thomas just joined. Thomas has experience from larger companies, transformation and manufacturing, operations, IT. Marianne has been responsible for all the clinical studies so far. She's now been promoted to Chief Research Officer. We have Christian also here with us today, who's the Chief Financial Officer. He's been with the company for quite some time. And Anders is the commercial responsible, with a lot of experience as well. So I still manage the US, Anders manages all the ex-US markets, and then we're very happy with our board. So again, we're working very closely together with Philip, Marlou, Ulf, and Frederick, and we are ready to go to the next phase. So why would anybody be interested in Acarix? First of all, we have really solid R&D. I think as a small company, you could look at those publications, the studies that have been done. The IP is more than 45 patents, regulatory approvals now, especially in the US. We have a commercial model that we know works, and we're now going to expand, going into the US, and then we have the financials and the team. So if you take a step back and you think, is the product there? Yes. Is the potential there? Yes. And do we have the right team to deliver on this? I think the answer is yes. So that concludes, and I thank you for your attention.
Well, thank you very much, Helen. This is indeed a very, very interesting product. And I'd like to ask you, we live in a very unstable world right now. Where do you produce your medical device in terms of products and materials and availability and transport and all this that's affected by the current war?
That's a really good question. So our product is put together in Denmark. And it's shipped out of Denmark. But we source our components from different parts of the world, and we have supply for this year's forecast, and we keep building on that. Our patches are made in China, but we have sufficient patches as well.
Okay, yeah, that's a safe and stable answer.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
In terms of competition, you mentioned that you didn't really have any, so what is the biggest what is the biggest threshold for you to be able to enter more of the medical offices, let's say, starting in the United States?
Well, sometimes it's actually very good to have a competitor because it increases awareness. In this case, I think our biggest competitor is that there's a fixed protocol for how these patients are managed. So we are working on changing behavior, but we do see that the two key success factors for the US market is that the clinic can clearly see where the CAD score system fits. And I've seen it myself. When you're in a clinic, they're looking at the system, say it's going to sit on this cart for these patients at this time, and then they have a waiting room full of patients. That's sort of the ideal situation. But it's hard to change behavior, but they are very interested to work on that.
And it's also so small, so in terms of space, and
it's not a big bulky
bulky machine?
I actually carry mine in a camera bag. So I don't have it with me today, but it's easy to carry with you.
How about other conditions like myocardia? I mean, athletes get that sometimes when they work out with an inflammation, infection in their bodies. Can you detect that type of heart problems too, or is it mostly?
We haven't actually looked at that. So at the moment, we're focusing on coronary artery disease. The next
Which
one
is
is
the
heart
biggest, of
failure.
course,
Yes, and then we could go on to other areas as well.
So sounds like the sky is the limit.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
Well, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you, everyone.